Hi everyone, I'm Carol Keller, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Illinois in the United States, and I have for you today 3 card alternatives to the November 2022 Paper Pumpkin Kit, which is called From the North Pole. I hope you like them. Let's get started. Okay, here is a quick look at this month's kit. As always, it comes with a stamp set, and some of the stamps are mounted for the cards we will be doing today. It also comes with a cherry cobbler ink spot, and if you make the kit as intended, you will make 12 tags, 3 different designs. And remember always to double check on the back to make sure that you have all of your supplies that are supposed to come with the kit before you get started, because if you don't, you can reach out to Stampin' Up! And they will send you what you need. And then there is a little flyer that tells about some coordinating bags that you can also use to decorate for holiday gifts. And then, as always, a sneak peek to next month's kit, which is going to be gift card holders, 16 gift card holders. And then there's an also add-on with this one as well for cards and envelopes that will coordinate with the gift card holders. So look for that next month, and we will get started. Here is the first card that I have designed for this month, or with this month's kit. And we did some embossing. I did some embossing with white embossing powder, and I'm going to show you how to emboss in any color. I don't think I've ever done that, but I decided I needed it for this card because I started out with the tag, and then I made, well, you'll see, I made a second tag to go with it, and I'll show you how I did that. Then I also did some embossing. So I did start with a basic white card base. And as always, I use my bone folder to get it nice and flat. Put that aside for now. And then I have a Shaded Spruce piece of cardstock that is the same size as the card front, so 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2. And that's what we're going to do first, is some embossing using some stamps from the kit. So I've got my Versamark pad, because that's what we need to emboss. And I'm starting with the Ho Ho Ho. So we make sure you have good ink on your stamp. And I'm going to stamp it 3 times. Up at the top. And over on the right, about halfway down. And bottom left. And then we'll move the Versamark out of the way. And I'm going to bring in our wonderful embossing kit. It is available in the mini catalog, and it will be carrying over, I'm happy to say. Oh, that's right, I always forget. I forgot to use my embossing buddy, but I am going to use it in between. You should use it really before you start, just to make sure there's no static there. And I tend to forget that. And we are using our white embossing powder. I've got the clear put aside for the next part of the project. So we're going to open that up and put the embossing powder on. And I just kind of slid it down so it would hit the bottom Ho Ho Ho, and then the one on the right. So most of it goes back in the jar and on my fingers, but the rest goes in that tray. I'm going to take the brush and just brush off the stray pieces because we don't want those on there. And I think I'm going to put just a little bit more powder right here. Seems like it needs just a little more. Yeah, that looks much better. And then we are going to emboss once more with the brush here. So I'm going to move all of this out of the way for right now and bring in my heat tool. And I'm going to be very careful because my surface is laminated, and if I get the heat tool too close, it's going to melt it. Ask me how I know. And then we'll see the magic happen. As that powder melts. And as you see, as it heats up, it goes more quickly. So that one melted much more quickly than the first one. And now this is how you emboss in any color you would like. I'm going to bring that Versamark back. This time I'm going to take the Merry Christmas stamp, and I'm also going to grab my Cherry Cobbler ink. Move this out of the way so we get inked in Versamark, and then we dip in the color that we want and we stamp. Now, it's really important to clean your stamp in between every single time, because otherwise you're going to get Cherry Cobbler in here, and if you can see, it's a little pink. So I know from experience not to do that, which I knew before I did it and did it anyway. So we're going to clean that, and then we're going to start over again in the Versamark. So see, then there's no Cherry Cobbler in there. And grab some ink and stamp here. Clean it again and repeat. And I'm going to put my inks away. And so this time we're going to use the clear embossing powder, and make sure you have the correct one because they both look white, but it definitely will make a difference when we are embossing. And we'll get rid of any stray powder. All right, and you see I knocked some off of the M, so I'm going to put that right back on. Try that again. And usually if you flick with your fingernail, you can get off the excess that you don't want. All right, so there we have it, all embossed in 2 different colors. And to clean the tray, you just use the brush to scrape all of the powder to the end, take off the cap and pour it right in there. And I could have used my tweezers too, especially I use those a lot when I have a small item to emboss, because then it keeps your fingers from getting burned. All right, so now we can put that on our card front using some multi-purpose liquid glue. You can see there's a little bit, I don't know if you can see, but there's a little bit of powder on the back. It tends to kind of get everywhere, so it is good to kind of wipe your surface off too, but it is not going to hurt anything. So there we have our card front all ready for the tag, and it's nice because it dries very quickly too, and then we have a beautiful card front. Okay, so now I took from the kit this tag, and it also comes with a tag that is meant to be layered with it, which is this one, and I have it for another card, so it's out of here already. But this is what I did to make the Cherry Cobbler tag, because I didn't want to use this one. I just took my Cherry Cobbler cardstock and I laid this so that one end was right at the edge of this and the top right here. And then I took a pencil and I marked off the other edges. Okay, so I know it's going to be straight here and up at the top. And I used my trimmer. You could fussy cut it, but I knew if I used my trimmer, I would get better, more exact cuts. So that's what I did. We're going to lay that right in the channel so I can see. You can't probably, but I can see the pencil mark there. And we'll do the same thing here. And with the corners as well. That way I have nice exact cuts. There we go. And so I'm going to layer like this. I did also get a hole punch, which Stampin' Up! Sadly doesn't sell anymore, but I had one here. So I just looked toward the middle and punched a hole. And actually, you could even line it up. I think that's what I did initially. Oh, I did a good job anyway. But I lined it up. That's what I did. I lined it up like this and then punched the hole so that I could feed the ribbon through. And we do have some wonderful glittered organdy ribbon that's white, and I would have used that, except I used it all up for some projects I was working on. So instead I'm using the crinkled seam binding ribbon, which also works. And I just cut a length, maybe 6 inches or so long. I did not measure. And then I fed it from the back. Actually, first, before I do that, whoops, I wanted them to be at an angle, and I wanted them to stay that way. So I did put some Stampin' Seal to hold it in place. So just on that side, of course, and then line it up this way, about like that, because I wanted some of that cherry cobbler to show through. And fold this in half and feed it. You could do it either way, from the back to the front or from the front to the back. It will give you a slightly different look. In fact, let's do it this way. I did it from the back to the front on that one. I'll do it the other way so that you can see what that will look like. And I could also use my take your pick tool, which maybe I want to do since the back end is smaller. I'm going to grab my take your pick tool, and there is a stylus end, which is probably a lot safer than this, but since I have this here, I'm going to be adventurous and daring and just poke it through and hope that it doesn't tear. All right. But there is, like I said, if you don't want to use that sharp end, there is a stylus tip, a two-sided stylus tip, and you could use that to push it through. So we bring it here and we put the ends through the loop like this. So it looks very similar either way. Maybe I did do it that way for this one. I don't remember. And then same thing, I'm going to put some Stampin' Seal on the back. Make sure that stays in place. And I'm going to lay it right here. And you can see I purposely moved the Merry Christmas down to the bottom because I really wanted that to show. So I purposely stamped these at the edges, and the same thing with the ho ho ho. And I'm going to trim that ribbon down just a little bit so that it doesn't hang over the card. Pretty up the edges a little bit. And then the Santa hat comes from the kit. And this I did use, there are dimensionals, mini dimensionals that come with the kit, so I used those. And I'm actually going to use the edges. This is not the one that came with the kit. I haven't used them all yet, but this is the one that I have been working from. So I put a mini dimensional on the little pom-pom of the hat, and then I'm just going to cut a section of the edge to lay that like this so that it will stand up. Take those paper backings off. And let's see. I hate covering all of that Merry Christmas. I think we'll move it like this time. Well, it's still going to cover most of it, but we'll do it like that. And then, last but not least, also from the kit, there are some snowflakes that come with the kit. So I am taking one of those, and this is the dull side. There's one side is very shiny. So on the dull side, I'm going to grab another mini dimensional and pop that right in the middle. Move it over just a little bit so it is in the middle. There we go. And we'll put that here. And so our front is complete. And then for the inside, I just stamped Merry Christmas, also in cherry cobbler. I'm going to grab my ink pad again and my Merry Christmas stamp. And it's needing re-inking, so I'm moving it all around so hopefully it gets even coverage of the ink. Let's move this straighter. Oh yeah, that's better. And then I did the same thing on the envelope. Make sure we have it right side up. And our first card is complete. Here is my second card. And for this one, again, we're doing some embossing in white, but we're also going to have some fun with that candy cane stamp, because when I saw it, I immediately thought of a J, but it is backwards. And that was bothering me because I wanted to write the word joy. I thought that would be really cute. So I'm going to show you how I was able to do that with some reverse stamping. So let's put that aside and get going right away. Again, I have a basic white card base. That is what I used for all 3 of the cards today. So I like having it white on the inside. It makes it easier to write rather than having a darker color. And then I've got a piece of Sweet Sorbet this time, and it is smaller than the card front. It's 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And just like before, I am going to stamp in Versamark several, and I just did several of the candy canes because I knew where I wanted to position the tags. So I just wanted 3 candy canes around the edges. So I'm going to bring that Versamark back in. And just like before, I'm going to emboss in white. So I'm going to do that and be right back. All right, so now we've embossed that. And let me just say I had to stop and clean my surface because there was embossing powder everywhere, little bits of it. So know that going in that you want to keep it clean. But I love the magic that happens when you emboss. And now we're going to just put this on the card front using some Stampin' Seal. And next we're going to use 2 tags from the kit, and they actually are meant to be layered like this to make one of the tags. But I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to stamp on this one. And like I said, I really wanted to write the word joy, and it just fits nicely there. So I'm going to show you how I did that. So first I need my Stamparatus, and I just have one of the plates on because that's all I need for this. And I need my silicone craft sheet, and it does have the Stampin' Up! Logo, so you do want to make sure that's away from where you're stamping. So I'm going to be stamping up here. I'm going to take that candy cane stamp, and I want to stamp it about here. I'm just going to pick it up with my plate, and then let me move it over so you can see. We're going to ink it up with Sweet Sorbet, and we're going to do it 3 times. So there's one, because we want to get a good layer of ink on that silicone craft mat, and you'll see why when we stamp. So we give it a good press, get that ink on there, and you can see that it's there, but I'm going to do it again. The video that I watched to learn how to do this said to do it twice, but I decided 3 times would be even better. So that's what we're going to do. And you can play around with this, and I do recommend that you practice before you do it on your project, because I will tell you that I did practice and still ended up turning over one tag and practicing again on the other side. All right, so there are 3 times. And I'm going to take the Stamparatus out of the way, and I've got that tag, and I've got my silicone craft mat. And I want that J to be right here, so I'm going to flip it over. And this will be hard to see on camera, but as you get closer, hopefully you will see it. As you get closer, you can see where the tag is, so that I know that it's placed where I want it to be, right toward the edge and centered. And I'm going to grab a block and press. And I'm pressing pretty hard because I want that ink to transfer. And then we lift it off. Voila, not too bad. It looks like the top didn't quite transfer, but I'm pretty happy with that. Again, if you're not happy, you can try it again. Certainly you could always cut another tag. That's pretty easy too. And then I'm going to bring in my Sweet Sorbet ink again. And this time we've got the joy stamp, but I'm only inking the O and the Y. I'm just laying it right on the edge so that only those 2 letters get inked. And I'm going to stamp them about here. And there we have it, the word joy with a cute little candy cane J. And for the silicone craft sheet, all you have to do is run it under water, warm, cold, it doesn't matter, and it will clean it off. So I have one silicone craft mat that I use just for reverse stamping, and then another one that I use for glue and things like that because it tends to get little bits on it, where this one is pretty pristine because that's all I use it for. All right, so now I'm going to bring in a scrap because we're going to do some more stamping on that tag. And it may still be a little bit wet. I think it's okay. Sometimes the reds take longer to dry, especially when it's thick like that. Oh, and I did want to show, I also tried using that stamp and I stamped it on the reverse side. So just the thick, solid side, I guess is the best way to say it. And I did want to show you that this is what it looks like. So if you were afraid of doing the reverse stamping, or maybe you don't have a Stamparatus, you could always just mount the stamp so that the back side is on top, ink it up, and then this is what you get. So it would be larger, but it would probably still maybe just fit. Maybe you would have a little bit of issue, but it would be pretty close. So that's what it would look like if you use the reverse side of the stamp rather than doing what we did with the Stamparatus. But now I have a snowflake, and this is actually from last month's kit, Ho Ho Ho, and I thought this would be perfect to stamp some snowflakes in Mint Macaron. So that's what we're going to do. Just kind of stamp here and there and everywhere. Maybe here, just a little bit on the edge. I do like doing that. And then that is our tag. And then while we're stamping, we'll put that aside for a second, because while we're stamping on the inside, I stamped Merry Christmas, and I used another one of the candy cane stamps in the corner. So actually we'll take that Mint Macaron and bring it right back in. Got some little fuzzies there. And so the Merry Christmas stamp, you can see I've been using it a lot with the reds, especially cherry cobbler. It tends to get stained, but it doesn't matter. Mint Macaron's a very light green, and we are not going to see any red when we stamp. It's just stained on the stamp, but it will not affect the color, as you can see. And then we're going to bring in that Sweet Sorbet one more time, and we're going to stamp the candy cane. And we're going to make sure we have it turned around the right way. There we go. And we'll put that right in the corner. Oh, I have a little bit of red on me. I'm going to have to fix that later. And I'm going to leave that to the side to dry a little bit. And then bring in my envelope, because we're going to stamp another candy cane in the corner for that. And that should take care of our stamping. And that looks pretty dry. Move the envelope out of the way. And then we'll work on our tag. So the same thing as with the last one. I overlapped them, but then I used my Stampin' Seal because I want them to be held in place. Well, some good Stampin' Seal so it holds onto that glitter piece, and we'll do probably like that. So I wanted a decent amount of that Mint Macaron to show. And then the kit comes with some Mint Macaron twine. So that's what I used for this. Just fed it through and tied a bow. Here. The pressure of doing it on camera. There we go. And I like tying it off of the roll so that I don't waste any. And we'll just fix it to get it to the size I want, and then give it a snip. Oops. There we go. And I'm just going to play with it so that it turns to the angle that I want. Let's see here. Open up those. There we go. And then we're going to put it on again with some Stampin' Seal. And we'll add the Happy Holidays sentiment from the set and the snowflake. And so I am just using, I think I'll use glue dots for this since it's narrow, and there are some that come with the kit. And place that right here, giving a little mat of cherry cobbler, or of sweet sorbet, I'm sorry, all the way around. And then for the snowflake again, we're going to find the shiny side, which is this one, and turn it over and put a mini dimensional on the back of that as well. Right in the middle. And then that goes in the corner. And that is card number 2. And this is the last card for today. I actually did a couple of variations. This one, I tried swiping my ink pad across the top, but then I also used my sponge dauber, which is what I'm going to actually use today. But I did also try another version, and for this one, I put ink in the embossing folder before I ran it through. So you can see that the dark is on the notes, doing it this way, and in the background doing it the other way. So you have your choice. If you put your ink on your embossing folder before you emboss, and I use the Merry Melody 3D embossing folder. So if you put it right in the embossing folder, this is the look you get. If you swipe your ink pad and or use a sponge dauber, you get this look. So we are going to actually do this one for today. So again, I've got that basic white card base. Put that aside, and I did already run my Mint Macaron through the embossing folder. It is the same size as the card front, so it is 5.5 by 4.25. I'm trying to determine if it's upside down or not, which I think it might be. I think it goes this way, yes. Okay, so I'm going to get that mat again. And I'm going to grab my sponge dauber and my Shaded Spruce. So even though this is Mint Macaron, I used Shaded Spruce for the detail because I wanted it to be a little darker. And so I'm going to ink this up and sort of dab and wipe a little bit on the notes. And obviously the more ink you use, the darker it is. And if you wipe it, it gets better coverage, but you do tend to wear down your sponge dauber, so know that. But I am going to do that for this one, I think. So I really want those notes to stand out. So I will finish the rest off camera and be right back. All right, and I apologize for my little sun ray there. It's right in between where the blinds are, so I can't get rid of it. But hopefully it's not too distracting. But here is our finished product. So even this looks different from this one where I swiped because I only used the sponge dauber in between. So again, you have 3 very different looks depending on which medium you use. Whoops. And so we're going to put that on the card front using some multi-purpose liquid glue. And now we are using the other tag that we did not use on the first card. And I also am using a piece that technically is meant to go with a different tag, but I thought it worked well for this one. And so here's that piece, and I'm adhering it this way. So I'm going to grab my multi-purpose liquid glue again. A little bit of a tear, and take that off. And just put some glue, not all the way to the edges because the edges will be hanging off of the tag, as you'll see, and some around the center. And then this is a good use for those tweezers. So I'm just going to lay it here over the hole and making sure that it's even like that. And I'm going to take my snips and we'll snip off the edges. Make sure that's straight again. So give a little snip on each side. And we will adhere this to the card, again with our Stampin' Seal. Oh no, actually, before we do that, we're going to tie a bow with that wonderful Mint Macaron twine. And this time I doubled it. I got a piece that was about 8.5 or 9 inches long, which I'm just guessing at right now, and doubled it. And I will say, if you make the cards this way, you will get at least 12 cards. So for this one, you may want to just single your twine because you may not have enough otherwise, but I am not going to worry about that right now. Actually, I'm not going to snip this yet. We're going to leave it folded because it's easier to feed through. And hopefully we'll cut it at the end. Oh yeah, this is plenty long enough. So we're going to keep it doubled and just tie a bow. But this way we have a double bow. And then we'll just snip this. And we'll have our tails. Easy peasy. And we'll put that on the card front, again using Stampin' Seal. And again, I want to make sure I have enough so it adheres, since this is 3-dimensional. It's got some layer to it. And then we're going to grab a snowflake from the kit and a tag and a candy cane. So let's get all those out. Here is where the tag comes from. We're going to stamp that in Sweet Sorbet, since that matches the stripes on the tag. We'll bring in that Joy stamp, and this time we're using the whole thing. And I am going to move it to the left a little bit more than I did. I centered it before, but I want room for that candy cane on the end. So I'm sort of keeping that in mind. And then on the inside, we did a candy cane and Merry Christmas. This time the Merry Christmas is in Shaded Spruce. But while we've got the ink, we'll ink up that candy cane. And stamp it here. And also on the envelope. Don't want to have a naked envelope. Make sure we have some good ink there. So that is it for Sweet Sorbet. And we'll bring the Shaded Spruce back in for the Merry Christmas. And I believe that is all of our stamping. That looks dry. I think it does. And we've got our tag, and that also looks dry. Again, those dark colors with stamps that are pretty inked up take just a few seconds longer to dry. And then, like I said, we're going to get that snowflake. So for the snowflake, I put some glue dots on the back, because again, they're handy with the kit. One in the middle, and then one around almost all the spokes, like leaving 2 at opposite ends empty, because, and without a glue dot, because those are going to extend beyond the tag. And so I didn't know how well they would stick anyway, so I just left them off of there. But we want enough so that, whoops, got the glue dot on the table instead of on the snowflake. There we go. And so this should be enough then to hold it down as well. They don't stick to me, and they stick to the snowflake like they're supposed to. Whoops. And I'm going to take the paper off. And now I've got the 2 points of the snowflake that don't have an ink or a glue dot. And I'm going to put those here. Put that about like that. That should be plenty. And then, of course, we got another one of those little snowflakes, since there are a bunch in the kit. Getting good use out of those, and you see there are still more, so I can use them for some of the other cards. This is the shiny side, so I'm flipping it over and putting another dimensional on the back. And then that goes right in the center. For the tag, I used Stampin' Seal. And for the candy cane, I used dimensionals again, the minis. So scattering a few around so that it will stand up. And I ended up adding another one here because I felt like there was a big gap. So what you could do is just space these 3 out more along the length of that candy cane, and that would work too. Put that over here. And then last but not least, I did add some bling from the Festive Pearls. I think they're real red, but they worked for this. I thought they matched nicely. And I did do it a couple of different ways. Let me bring the other card in again. This is the first card I did. And I did want to show you too, the reason that the tag is over here is originally I was going to layer this on here. So I actually punched a hole and I needed to cover it up with the candy cane. So that's how it ended up on this side of the card. So always a way to cover your mistake. So I started scattering some pearls around, and then I thought it would be really pretty to line the snowflake, the tips of the snowflake. So that's what I did. So it's a little bit of overkill with the pearls on that one. So for this one, I just scattered them around and put one in the middle. And I think for this one, I'm going to put them around the snowflake instead, because I do think that's really pretty. But that way I could show you how it looks either way, and then you can decide which way you would like to do it. So we'll just put some around the tips. I do think that's so festive and so pretty, although you do use a lot since there are 8 tips. And I think we will still add one over here because I like that. So that is it. That is card number 3. So let me bring the other 2 back in so that you can see them. And actually I'm going to bring in the one where the candy cane came out even better. I like that one better. So again, practice makes perfect. And this was the first card. So doing the wonderful double embossing, and remember that you can emboss them in any color doing that. So those are the cards for this month. I hope you like them. Thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate you watching every month, subscribing to my channel, commenting, leaving me some love. That I appreciate that very much too. Stick around my channel. I've got other card videos. I've got scrapbook pages, home decor ideas, tips and techniques. And so hang around and check out some of those other videos as well. So hopefully they will help you in your crafting. And I will say goodbye for now and happy stamping.